The border wall illusion, surveillance theater, racialized enforcement, and the myth of safety. Introduction, the wall is myth, not measure. The U.S. border wall is not a security solution. It is a symbolic artifact, a mythic projection of control in a landscape shaped by fear, racial anxiety, and institutional betrayal. Despite billions spent on its construction, maintenance, and expansion, the wall has failed to prevent unauthorized crossings, drug trafficking, or cartel activity. Instead, it functions as a performance of safety, a visual reassurance to the public that the government is doing something, even as more effective, less visible tools already exist. This article explores the illusion of the border wall, the underutilized technologies that could render it obsolete, and the racialized logic behind immigration enforcement. It also examines how cartel activity is selectively tolerated until it becomes narratively useful, revealing a deeper pattern of strategic ignorance and theatrical prosecution. Through mythic political analysis, we reframe these systems not as protective structures, but as instruments of control, spectacle, and racial purification. 2. Surveillance without substance, the technocratic alternative. The tools we already have. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, Customs and Border Protection, CBP, and military intelligence agencies possess a sophisticated arsenal of surveillance technologies that far exceed the capabilities of any physical barrier. Autonomous Relocatable Surveillance Towers, ARST. These mobile towers use radar, infrared, and high-resolution cameras to detect movement across vast terrain. They can be repositioned to adapt to shifting cartel routes and migrant crossings. Unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. Drones provide real-time aerial imagery, identify tunnel entrances, and track movement in areas inaccessible to ground patrols. Ground-penetrating radar, GPR. This technology detects underground anomalies, including cartel tunnels, with high precision. Seismic and acoustic sensors. These pick up vibrations and sounds associated with tunnel digging or underground movement, often deployed near known smuggling corridors. AI-driven anomaly detection algorithms, ADA. These systems analyze surveillance data to identify patterns of unauthorized activity, including cartel logistics and migrant flows. Integrated situational awareness platforms. These synthesize data from multiple sources, sensors, drones, patrols, into a real-time operational picture, allowing for rapid response and resource coordination. B. Why these tools are underused. Despite their effectiveness, these technologies remain underutilized. Why? Because they lack spectacle. They do not offer the visceral satisfaction of a towering wall, nor do they serve the political theater of taking action. Their quiet efficiency threatens the myth of invasion, a myth that justifies militarized response and racialized enforcement. The wall, by contrast, externalizes threat. It dramatizes protection. It creates a visible boundary between us and them, reinforcing a narrative of purity, danger, and control. In this way, the wall is not a tool, it is a prop. 3. Racialized enforcement, the anti-brown sweep. The myth of the illegal. The removal of undocumented immigrants is not a neutral legal process. It is a racial purge disguised as policy. Latinx communities, many of whom have lived, worked, and contributed to U.S. society for decades, are targeted under the guise of legality. This targeting is not about security. It is about racial anxiety, historical continuity, and institutional cleansing. From Operation Wetback in the 1950s to modern ICE raids, the U.S. has repeatedly weaponized immigration enforcement to suppress brown bodies. These sweeps are not random. They are ritualistic, designed to reaffirm national identity through exclusion. B. Data without ethics. The government already possesses the data, the tools, and the capacity to manage immigration humanely. Biometric databases, visa tracking systems, and internal surveillance networks provide comprehensive visibility into migrant populations. What is missing is not information, it is ethical clarity. Instead of using this data to support integration, protection, and autonomy, it is weaponized to justify removal. The result is a system that punishes presence, criminalizes survival, and erases contribution. 4. Cartel theater, strategic ignorance and selective prosecution. The pattern of tolerance. Cartel activity along the border is not uniformly combated, it is curated. Intelligence agencies often allow certain operations to flourish until a high-value target emerges. Then, with dramatic flair, arrests are made, press conferences held, and narratives spun. This pattern, strategic tolerance followed by theatrical enforcement, suggests that the goal is not eradication, but control. Some cartel tunnels remain undetected for years, not due to technological failure, but bureaucratic inertia. Surveillance data is filtered through political priorities, not ethical imperatives. The result, a system that tolerates harm until it becomes narratively useful. B. The big fish strategy. Law enforcement agencies often ignore low-level cartel activity in favor of pursuing big fish. This strategy allows operations to continue until they reach a scale that justifies intervention. It is not about prevention, it is about optics. This approach mirrors the logic of the wall. Wait until danger becomes visible, then respond with spectacle. It is a reactive, theatrical model that prioritizes narrative over protection. V. Mythic analysis, walls, webs, and the ethics of discernment. The wall as archetype. In mythic terms, the wall represents separation, purity, and exclusion. It is the boundary between the known and the unknown, the safe and the dangerous, the citizen and the other. But this archetype is outdated. In a world shaped by data, mobility, and surveillance, the wall is no longer a protective structure. It is a fetish. It externalizes threat, racializes movement, and performs safety while ignoring root causes. It is a relic of a dying paradigm, one that cannot hold the complexity of modern migration, cartel logistics, or survivor sovereignty. B. Toward a new mythology. We must replace the wall with a new mythic framework, one that honors autonomy, truth-telling, and discernment. Surveillance should serve protection, not domination. Enforcement should support healing, not purging. Policy should reflect ethics, not optics. This new mythology must center survivors, not systems. It must prioritize transparency over secrecy, sovereignty over control, and complexity over spectacle. 6. Survivor-centered sovereignty, reframing the narrative. From control to care. Survivor-centered frameworks demand a shift from control to care. They ask, who benefits from enforcement? Who is harmed by spectacle? What truths are erased by policy? In this model, undocumented immigrants are not threats, they are narrative disruptors. They expose the failures of policy, the hypocrisies of enforcement, and the racialized logic of exclusion. Their presence demands ethical reckoning, not removal. B. Practical alternatives. Instead of walls, we need community-based surveillance ethics that protect without criminalizing, digital sovereignty protocols that allow migrants to manage their own data, mythic education tools that reframe migration as transformation, not invasion, survivor-led policy councils that shape enforcement from the ground up. These alternatives are not utopian, they are necessary. They reflect the reality of our tools, the complexity of our systems, and the urgency of our ethics. 7. Conclusion, the real border is ethical. The border wall is not a solution, it is a spectacle. It dramatizes safety while ignoring the tools that could actually provide it. It racializes enforcement while masking the data that could humanize it. It tolerates cartel activity until it becomes narratively useful, then responds with theatrical prosecution. In its place, we must build mythic frameworks that honor autonomy, truth-telling, and survivor sovereignty. We must replace walls with webs, networks of care, discernment, and ethical protection. The real border is not geographic, it is ethical. And it is time we crossed it.